Hey there everyone, and welcome back to Kastology, the show hosted by yours truly, where I look into obscure things and other stuff I like, either to try and give a new perspective, or to bring more awareness to it. If you have been around Newgrounds or YouTube before, you're probably familiar with a little show called Eddsworld. This single show has impacted me a lot, including in the most obvious way, which you can see by just looking at the avatar I use in my videos. Eddsworld has quite the fan base, so I'm sure this video will probably upset some people. And if I do, I'm sorry, this is just my opinion, and I think there aren't enough people saying it out there. You're free to think whatever you want, and I can't take that away from you. Before I get properly started though, I should make it absolutely clear that I love Eddsworld, and I'm just making this video to express my thoughts on the direction the new run, Eddsworld Beyond, is taking. Anywho, enough beating around the bush, let's get going. Alright, so as usual, here's the presentation. Eddsworld is a show from 2004 made by the late Ed Gold about a group of formerly 4 guys named Ed, Matt, Tom, and Tord, all loosely based on real people, going on adventures or just doing stuff. I say formerly since Tord left in 2008 with the intro of 25 Feet Under the Sea because of creative differences and the fan base. It's a very simple premise, but it really works in my and a lot of other people's opinions. There are a lot of episodes and they're still making them, so I'd rather not give a precise number. Similarly to Johnny Test, this show, for now, has 3 runs. First was the original Eddsworld, or Eddsworld Classic as I like to call it, from 2004 to 2012, made by Ed Gold himself. Second was Eddsworld Legacy, made by Thomas Ridgewell, or more commonly known as Tomska, from 2012 to 2016. Which was originally just a fundraiser made to finish Space Phase Part 2, but they ended up making 11 new full episodes. This was probably the hardest time for Eddsworld, both for the fans and for Tomska, as he had to deal with major issues of grief and depression, and had to carry the burden of the fan base's expectations for him. Alright, so call me crazy, but I think this might be my second favorite era for Eddsworld, next to the original. While it was not easy for the Legacy crew, I feel they did a great job carrying on and managed to do justice to the show. And finally, the last one, and the current one, Eddsworld Beyond, which is being run by Matt Hargreaves, Bing, and Ed's sister Vicky, which began last year in 2020, after being announced in 2016. Now, we've had 1 full episode and 4 shorts. I think the most remarkable thing about this run is probably the PR. The Eddsworld social media page is extremely active and they show a lot of art very frequently. As for the episodes, well, let's start off with the most positive aspect, the animation. The animation is spot on here. While I liked Paul's style in Legacy, it was a bit too detailed for Eddsworld, and while he knew how to imitate Ed's style perfectly as can be seen in some of the promotional images he drew for Legacy, I'm glad he didn't force himself to follow it. The other positives are Ed's new voice is pretty good, considering it's literally his brother. I mean, that's not an excuse for him being good, but yeah. Okay, on to all my problems with this run. Fanservice 2. Okay, this is actually a pretty good episode. Nothing to add here. Casting couch. This episode made absolutely less sense than usual, and while there were good jokes here and there, a lot of it felt weirdly forced in a way I can't explain properly.
George Gould, reading for Ed.
Gould? Any relation?
Yeah, I'm Ed's brother.
Oh, yeah, cool, you got it.
Plus, the 4th wall is non-existent and I don't feel like it doesn't feel very Eddsworld, if you know what I mean. You could argue that this is Matt's show now, and he could do whatever he wants, but I really think this is where the show kinda starts going downhill a bit, which I was kinda disappointed by this since I really loved fanservice too. The birds and the bees. What? Also, considering this short is 2 minutes long, that means the other 2 minutes are just the sponsor segment and the end credits. Yeah, there's a sponsor segment, which I guess is understandable since they're definitely not gonna pay the animators and voice actors on exposure. But at the same time, this feels really weird since they do have a Patreon for the show. I don't mean ill will by this, though. I know they aren't doing this just to get money off of the fans' back, else they'd make an Eddsworld gacha. Beaster Bunny. Here it is, the first proper episode of Beyond. The only thing that ticked me in this episode was the Tom's car joke, which was a not very subtle jab at Legacy. This episode almost gets the vibe right, but it's just, I don't know, it's not energetic enough. There's a lot of music missing. On the first viewing of this episode, I really did not like it. I'd probably have to say the best joke was the one with Eduardo. Besides that, the episode in general wasn't very funny. Oh, by the way, I found a video that sums up how this episode would have been in the original run of the show. And I linked the original video in the description. Random. With Tom being on a thumbnail, I'd assume this is like a Tom's Tale short, but it's more like as the movie without the crazy pacing, which makes it so that you actually have time to process the joke. And most of Asdaf movies' jokes aren't really that funny. They only really work because they're fast-paced and you don't have time to react. And the sad thing about Random is that most of the jokes are not that great. The best one in my opinion was the super absorbent paper towel. After that, I think you can figure out what my opinion of Eddsworld Beyond is. I just don't think it's very faithful to the original, or even Legacy. And when it gets close to being so, there's still something missing. I'd love Beyond a lot more if they managed to blend the original style of Eddsworld along with the personal style of Matt and the others, a bit like what Tom did with Legacy. Legacy may have been all over the place, but I still believe it was a bit more consistently good than Beyond so far. Again, it might be a bit too early to judge since there's only a few episodes and shorts to go off of, but I guess we'll just see in the future. As I said earlier, I have made this video in order to properly convey my thoughts on this show. I love Eddsworld and I want to see it get better, but every time I look in the comments, it feels to me like people are blindly praising the show without noticing the problems it has, and it feels like I'm going crazy since I don't seem to find anyone else who shares my thoughts on the current state of the show. To close out this video, I would like to state that I am not hating on the show. Considering this fucking fanbase, I'm surprised the staff even manages to keep their head on their shoulders, when a lot of them flip out over little changes like they did back when Legacy was still ongoing. I know this because I hated Solunatics when it came out just because of the art style. I was 11. But yeah, if you have seen Eddsworld, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this in the comments below.
Next time on Kastology.
Yeah!